Welcome to the Candid Conversation Show. I'm your host, Marilyn Fontaine, artist and creative coach for women who want success and income with ease. Hi, welcome to the Candid Conversation. This is episode 14. Last week I gave you a bonus episode, Protect Your Magic, but we are resuming our artist practice series. And today I'm going to talk about the cycles of creating. So I've covered this slightly before, but I want to just touch on it in terms of experience in having art projects and commissions that we have to complete. And so, as with my creative practice, I spoke about what I do to set up in studio and get myself in the energy before I start creating. This episode is actually practice in terms of seasonal practice. And when I say seasonal practice, I mean that I'm not just talking about creating during winter, spring, summer and autumn. I'm talking about seasonal practices within ourselves as creatives. When do we have our own personal winters? There's always a word that gets thrown around about having an artist block. But I feel, especially as a woman who's past menopause, I'm feeling my creative blocks become much more in line with a natural pause, or so I have my creative blocks before a big project is coming in. And that could be, again, even in my coaching business, I feel a sense of drawing inward before I go out and have this energy. And I feel that we have to be aware of that. And especially as you're running a business. And I think it's really good to understand your cycle. And you're not going to know your cycle until you actually experience it, until you're actually going to be creating, and until you put yourself out there. And one of the main problems I find with creatives is that a lot of creatives that are perfectionists won't push themselves, actually get to the stage where they actually know their cycle. They keep being in the stage of, I'm creating something, it's not perfect, I'll put it away, rather than allowing that energy to flow, create that stuff, and allow them to feel, what's next naturally. You know, it's like we eat dinner, we want dessert, or if you're like me, I want dessert first and then dinner. But, we have a process, or in therapy they call it a Gestalt process, where there's a cycle that gets completed. Read it out, the Gestalt process. But I think that, Gestalt period. And what happens is that we have something, we expect it to come to completion. So imagine if you're eating a really beautiful, a nice sandwich, a tasty, I'd say, not beautiful, a tasty sandwich. And just before you finish it, somebody whips that sandwich away. You're going to feel incomplete, yeah? You're going to feel really, really incomplete because you haven't finished that little bit, your body was ready to finally finish that sandwich. So you don't get it. You don't get to finish it. So it feels like, we used to say having a gap, that space where that used to be feels empty. And that's what the Gestalt cycle is. Sometimes is that you experience something and it has a beginning, middle and end. Please look it up. It's not even what I'm explaining, but it's a cycle that you don't have. And so when we don't put our work out, we don't experience how it feels. And so it's really important to push yourself or to find out your blocks to not creating, because you're missing out on your cycles, you're missing out on your artist process. And for some people, they can just create, especially if they're in a computer. But what I'm finding is that I have a big major project, which is what I'm working on now, a big project, and then I would give myself some time and start working with experimentation. So now I'm working with watercolours, which was a break from my heavy work. But it actually gave me an insight into actually my cycle. My cycle doesn't want that intensity at the moment. My cycle wants to experiment and explore and play. And therefore, going with that, I'm now able to come back to my work and be more intense again and have that intensity. Because my work is so intuitive and fluid, working with the watercolours, I was following rules. And so it's something about, it really reminds me of part of us that sometimes just wants to be led and to be shown something rather than having to be outward and just experimenting and bold. Sometimes we want to pull ourselves in. And so that cycle of me is being really inward, very intentional, very, watching, listening, learning, and then executing, as opposed to putting the canvas out and just executing intuitively. I hope you can follow with me. And so the creative process, I feel that there's a part of me which I would relate to being very bold and very outgoing and very, I've got a story to tell and this is the big story to tell. And I'm not going to be ignored. I'm going to be, I have a right to be here. This is me showing the world I exist. And, that is the story that my artwork always tells, is it's telling the stories of those forgotten, or acknowledging what we should be, especially like women and goddesses. We should be seen as beautiful, special and fantastic and bold and just alive. But what I found with the watercolour, there's a delicacy, there's a coyness, there is almost an air-like emotion to those pieces, those experiential pieces, and that's the place I'm at. And I wonder what when I just surrender to this process, what comes next. So will it be, because I find my normal exhibition work is more of the wise wisdom type of work, telling a really big story passed down from generations, and this work is more kind of my dance with life and love and just being and not having to be serious or make a statement. So I wonder what the next level is, and maybe that is the sculpture. What that would bring and what that would reflect. Will it be more fiery and not with the wisdom, but just pushing the boundaries? And so I want you to think about your cycles as a creative. Think about where you are in your life and what you create. And, they have different artists that, they go through different periods and different schools of creating. But I want you to think about when you are creating, regardless of what medium you're using, what energy does that bring? Is it an energy of more poetic and more amorous type of, kind of fluid? Or is it political and strong? And again, is it full of wisdom and leaves you to make up the rest of the narrative, what's going on in the piece that you create? And that could be, like I said, anything. Who are you? What are you trying to create? What is the character? Like if these people were a character, like what would you be trying to create? What message would they be giving? So, for example, my watercolors, they've got blindfolds. Maybe it's kinky, maybe it's coercive and seductive. I don't know, but what like in the work you do, in the writing you do, what are you writing? Is it an erotic voice? Is it a strong voice? Is it a questioning? Is it a curious voice? Just something to think about when you create your work, because I do feel, because we're bombarded with so much images and so much things from the external world, we become generic in one way or the other, and we are all different parts. We're different parts within our psyche. And I think that, especially as creatives, especially as trailblazers, we feel we can't be anything other than what we are, what the world wants us to be. So I want you to give yourself radical permission to explore who you are in your creative cycles. And I think for this one, I'm going to ask the question, who are you? Who are you in your creative cycles? And if your creative cycles were a person, what would they describe? How would you describe them? I think that's it for today. I will share some news. I should be, when this podcast is out, I have an article in Kindred Spirit magazine on authors, so you might be able to get it on kindredspirit.co.uk or Watkins Books or any major bookshop. You should be able to find the magazine. I haven't seen it yet, but I know the magazine comes out today. I'm waiting for my copy. Also, if you want to book me for coaching, I have spaces for coaching. We cover things like, who are you in your cycles and who are you? And we look at your identity through every stage of your trailblazing and creative career. So I'm off home now and see you next week. Please share this podcast and like and subscribe as well. Let me know how you get on, because I know a lot of people do listen to it and I don't get any feedback, so that would be really important. Okay, signing off. Bye. You want to be part of an incubator of some amazing creative women, then you need to join the Highly Capable Creative one-to-one program with me. To join, you can just contact me at www.mjfontaine.co.uk and book a sales call with me to join this amazing 6-month program where we get to work on your creative business. We also get to work clearing your blocks and also bringing that confidence up to 100 so you can stand in your agency and live your best life.